Mm-hmm. Maybe that would be a good Halloween costume. I can dress as Chris McDougal and Titus can be the donkey.
Don't do bad as you've been asking for Maggie for ages. She's been known for not only winning the backyard outright, but winning 100 milers outright, smashing 250-mile races. We've got her on, finally. Hurrah! It's the wonderful Maggie Guterl. Oh, Guterl, I got it wrong. Maggie, I got it wrong. Guterl, Guterl.
Straight away. Incredible.
You can blame it on your accent. It's okay.
Whoa, how are things? How are things?
Good. Good. Things are good. It's winter here in Durango, Colorado, and it's 40 degrees every day. So we're in a freeze-thaw cycle, and so I'm running a lot of dirt roads. Yeah.
Well, just I think what 40 degrees is. So can you train throughout the winter?
Yeah. I mean, I have every year. I've been here very cold in the morning, but as soon as the sun comes up, it's pretty warm. And it doesn't rain much here. Just we get snow in the winter off and on. Are you guys in an area that you get a lot of rain?
We're in England.
Yeah, most of Britain. Yeah.
Yes.
Most of Britain, most of the time.
You guys don't have any deserts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only drought I've experienced in the UK was to the age of 18 before I kissed my first lady. Such. So it's about all you see in the UK. But anyway, I digress. Well, Maggie, where should we start? Talk us through how you kind of fell in love with running.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've always liked running off and on throughout my life, but I just didn't realize like how fun it can be and how much you can make it part of your life like when you get older. And so I really started running in Philly when I lived in the city there around. I pretty much ran the same place every day because we had this like really awesome loop in Philadelphia called the Kelly Drive Loop or the Museum Loop or whatever, the Schuylkill River Loop, whatever people call it. It's an 8-mile loop, and you can do out and backs or like variations. But yeah, that's pretty much what I did when I started running consistently maybe 15 years ago. And I don't know, I just liked how you felt after, and I kind of liked the whole challenge of picking a new goal to like train for and something to like keep you honest and like just to see how far you could go and things like that. And Philly has a really good running community, so I met a lot of friends through like just getting started there running. I pretty much only ran pavement because that's like you would have to run 8 miles just to get to trails out there, and I didn't do it too often. But yeah, that's where I got started. It was in Philadelphia, of all places.
Are the Philly cheesesteaks as good as everyone suggests?
No.
Oh, right. Oh, that saves me a trip. It's good to know. All my references are from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, so I've no idea how accurate a depiction that is.
I mean, it's not. It's. I mean, they're pretty crazy. But yeah, they do like a lot of stereotypical little Philly things, and all the outside shots I think are Philadelphia. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's funny that all your references are Philadelphia. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've been to that bar that Patties, that they are like, so that bar is actually the inside of a studio in LA, but the real Patties is for divey. Yeah, it's a hole in the wall, and they serve drinks in plastic cups, and the shots come in little Tylenol plastic cups and stuff like that.
Did that bar exist before the show, or have they created something?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
Yep.
So the front of it, they've just
and actually, well, the bar I used to work at was another dive bar in Old City, and that actually got bought by and now I'm blanking on the guy she's married to in the show, the other guy, not Charlie.
Rob McEnroy.
Married to Rob. So they are silent partners of the bar that I used to work at, they've changed the name and they redid it. It's not Divey anymore. But so they
what
bought
does
a different
divey
bar.
mean in America? Because I've heard divey so often
Oh yeah, like
in TV and films,
dirty.
but I haven't
Yeah,
really.
yeah,
Are
not
dive
swanky.
bars quite fun?
They could be, sure, if that's your style. Yeah, like they serve. Do you guys have Pabst Blue Ribbon there?
I'm aware it's
It's
kind of a weak college bar, the beer, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. It's like they have Budweiser all over the world, right? It's kind of like we're a step down. I would say it's a step down from Budweiser. Actually,
Oh,
you're
wow.
gonna get a lot of hate right now. I'm reviewing,
Oh, wow, a step down from Budweiser. That's
but everyone
fancy.
loves it, like hipsters, and if that's a thing for you guys, hipsters. I don't know. That's probably
Oh, that is.
early
I mean,
2000s.
Jody lives in the British well, he used to live in the British
you
equivalent
live in
of Portland.
Brixton. Surely Brixton. Brixton's full of hipsters, isn't it?
Where I come from, Maggie, we keep it real. You know, we're on the mean streets.
What's your
Yeah.
beer? What is your beer there? Like, what's the cool beer to drink that's not hoity-toity?
I mean, to be fair, all the Brixton drinks are fairly hipstery, kind of Brixton brewery. Basically British beers now are just copies of American pales, and then they put a new logo on it. But because I'd say probably our equivalent of a dive bar would be you just call something rough, like a rough pub, but you'd also be likely to get in a fight in a rough bar, and yeah, you'd have fun, but you'd have to watch yourself a bit.
Yeah, not necessarily then, I guess. It depends on the area. I mean, yeah, there's like a lot of kids wearing tight pants that are like bike messengers or something like that. Okay, I also haven't really been out to a bar in over 13 years, so I'm talking about bars in like the early 2000s here.
So
All of our
did you-
references are back to that. We don't actually know what's happened since then. So
Yeah, that's perfect. We are living in our own little dream world. So when did you have to escape Philadelphia to kind of fall in love with trails then, or and ultras, or when did you escape the road?
Yeah, I was running ultras, but yeah, and then I would sign up for various trail ultras and not do so well. And I was like, maybe it'd be better if we could get to more trails. And I just kind of got sick of city life. And so around 2015 or 14 or something, I moved out of the city. And then I was in the suburbs and had access to a car and I could drive to trails and stuff. And then, yeah, so that was a cool move. I was all about cities until like, I don't know, my mid 30s or early 30s. And I was like, I just want to be more in nature and like closer to woods and dirt. So yeah, that's.
And what was that like then? Because we've got a kind of sense of what the American ultra scene was like from, you know, books from Born to Run and the like, and Scott's books. But you kind of had, sounds like you had 3 years of being a city gal as such, but going out to ultras in the country. How would you view the culture that you were then kind of dipping into, and how did they view you as a kind of a city road runner?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of didn't know there was a difference between road and trail running, like when it came to ultras. So like, I don't know, I ran a lot of marathons in 2013 and binged the ultras in 2014. I did train for a 24-hour at the end of 2014, so I guess I was still keeping it pretty mixed up. I mean, I still do road just to keep speed and all, but I mean, I think the community is pretty meshed together, and road and trail ultras over here. I feel like there's just so much crossover. I mean, there's some people that specialize in road stuff, but they'll all do trail stuff as well. So, funny story when you mentioned Born to Run is like, I read that book obviously when I started running, and I would see Chris McDougall out on the Schuylkill River loop in Philly running barefoot, this like super tall, bald dude running barefoot. And I finally, recently we were like conversing on maybe Facebook Messenger or something, and he's writing another book, and we chatted about something, for that. But yeah, I told him, I was like, I used to see you. He's like, yeah, that's probably me. And I was like, oh, no way. So yeah, he used to run on that same loop barefoot, which is terrifying because it's Philadelphia.
And is he now trying to convince you to run with a donkey?
Yeah, I think he did mention that was a fun idea, and I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's right here. There's a couple, Leadville and Fairplay have a couple of burro races. But I don't know. I own a 12-year-old Weimaraner that likes to run 13-minute miles for no more than 2 miles, so I think I'm good.
Oh, so what do you own? Have you said you've got a donkey?
No, he's a Weimaraner. He's a dog.
Oh, a dog.
But he
gotcha,
looks like he looks like a small donkey.
Oh, fair enough. And when did you, in that journey then, when did you kind of realise you were half decent?
I don't know if I realized that yet, but I mean, 2014 was when I kind of wanted to try to qualify for the 24-hour team. So my goal was just to hit the qualifying miles, which at that time was like 130. But I was like, but in my mind, I was like, well, I think this is what I could do. And so, and then I kind of knew what number I needed to run to get on the team. And so I kind of had I trained really, really hard for that, focused just on that. I didn't do any other races because at that time I was doing like a ton of different races, like focusing on one. And so in 2014 in November, I ran the New Jersey one day. It's like a 1 mile paved loop, and I made the team, the USA 24-hour team. And then I got to go to Italy in 2015 to compete in the 24-hour championship there. So that was pretty cool. That was my first. I was like, I was starstruck because I was on a team with Connie Gardner and Tracy Falbo, and Harvey Lewis and people like that. And I was like, wow, this is crazy that I'm on the same team as them. This is a cool experience. Really awesome to be that's like ultra running, such a solitary, like lonely, not lonely, but it's just you. But the team aspect's really cool. Because even if you're having a bad day, you're not running just for yourself. Your miles count. They take the top 3 women and men's each team, and they add those miles up. So, kilometers.
You will overtake each other at times, but most of the time you're still running by yourself away from your teammates, aren't you?
Yeah, but I mean, you could run with Harvey for a little bit, and he will give you advice on, how to pace yourself, and don't worry about, you're both in 100th place and it's hour 3. He's like, none of that matters. And then you have Coach, Howard Nippert, usually the coach of the 24-hour team, and they're giving you feedback on where the other countries are, and you have a medical team helping you with anything that pops up, and you have your other teammates that have had to drop out that are there just cheering you on, and like it's just like super neat. Like it's a good environment to set a PR if you're looking to do something like that.
And is it easy to get a sense of which team's doing what? Like, is it easy to track if you're doing well overall? And how do you are you given responsibility for a certain number of expected miles, or?
You're hoping that you can always PR, I guess. So it's like, I knew what I'd done, and I had a goal in mind, and but yeah, I mean, you cross the mat, and then you can see kind of other people around you when they cross the mat at the same time on the little ticker board. But it doesn't really tell you the big picture. So once you go by your team's tent, they have the big picture, because they'll have some guy go over there and write down where each team is and what miles, and they don't really yell things at you in the first 12 hours or even 14 or something, 16, because it's such a long way to go. But yeah, towards the final hours, they would give me bib numbers of a woman to look for with that bib number, and you have to wear one on your front and back. And so I would just go hunting for that bib number, and you would ask someone who you were right in line with lap count wise, and you would just look for them. And so that was super motivating and a fun game to play in the last couple hours or 4 hours or whatever.
And do you get a sense from the times you've been that there is almost a national identity of runner, a kind of a national style where are there some nations that are known for going out quickly, some nations that, mentally crack easily, or are you told anything like that, or do you sense anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of know, like, it's funny, like, I mean, I think the Japanese always go out really fast. I've only been on the team once, but I've followed it pretty closely because I have a lot of friends that have make the team and fun to watch or like follow along. Yeah, I mean, like different countries will have different strong teams, like depending on certain individuals that are in it. Obviously Poland has Patricia, will really slaughter her last name, but she had the world record before Camille broke it for the 24-hour. I don't know. Russia always does shady stuff, like change outfits and get qualified.
That's what we like to hear. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah, I think UK are always like friendly with them, and Canada. I mean, all the teams are super friendly. No one is like unfriendly at all.
I think it's probably good.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be an advantage to be European because we have such close kind of stereotypical relationships with every country in Europe that I'm sure when you're looking for an extra reason to dig deep, you've got obviously rivalries with Mexico and with Canada, but that America doesn't really have that strong conflict in sports typically that you'd get in football, in rugby, in cricket, in all these other sports. And so I'd imagine when it comes down to it, like being a Brit and knowing that a Frenchman is in front of you or a German or an Italian is probably a lot more motivating than being an American who's like, oh, look at all these lovely people from different countries.
So is that it? Okay, so do you guys watch the Grand Tour, the 3 British guys that wreck cars basically?
Yes, I've seen the show before it, Top Gear, but I've not seen that one.
David's a massive fan of Jeremy Clarkson.
Yeah, those guys. Jeremy Clarkson's probably the funniest. They did an episode recently that was like making fun of French, like the French. The whole episode was like, so I was wondering if that was like some kind of rivalry because I'd never heard of a lot of those stereotypes before, and I guess it was like,
oh my
I can't think of an example right now, but anyone listening should go watch it. It's pretty funny.
I think if you independently looked at it, like the British and the French are like immature school children who keep on harping back to something that happened in the past and referring to like huge national stereotypes, but it's all done in a quite a fun way. But then we kind of love to hate each other.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people don't like the United States, but you hear about that from like other countries for whatever reason. But when you go to at least when I went in 2015, which I guess is a long time ago, there was none of that. There was no animosity towards the U.S. I know that we probably have a mark on our back because the female team pretty much dominates every year. But it's cool just because like no one cared, and we would like trade flags. Everyone gets little flags for their countries, and I still have one I got from someone I met from the Japanese team and a friend from Canada and stuff like that. And the girl that I couldn't catch one year, they gave me the bib 311, and it was a Swedish woman named Maria Jansen, and I couldn't catch her, so she ended up on the podium with my other 2 teammates, and we still keep in touch, and I follow her on Instagram. She's a badass, and so it's cool, really cool. Like, it's a cool thing. I would have never have like even met this girl ever, except for we were competing against each other this like time in Italy. So super cool.
Did she gave you her bib?
She did actually. I think we traded, or I got hers because I do have the 311 bib. Yeah.
And is there almost a rush to try and get certain individuals' bibs? Because in a football match, for example, in a World
yeah.
Cup game, people will want to get the most famous person's bib. So if you're like a pretty rubbish player who's like a defense in defense, you'll suddenly run as fast as you can when the whistle goes. You'll run up to the most famous player and you'll be like, casually, "Oh hey, should we swap bibs? Should we swap tops?" Is there anything like that where everyone's going out for Courtney or Camille's or things, trying to get the celebrity bib?
I'm sure that happens. I didn't. No one wanted my bib, but
No. Where is your bib, Maggie? We should auction it off.
I have one. I was gonna do that. I do an auction. I haven't had time to put it together, but I do an auction. I did it once for my friend Greg, who was on my 24-hour team. We've been friends since then. Greg Armstrong, who has a charity called Run for Water, and I auctioned off a bunch of ultra running memorabilia, and we raised like a ton of money for his charity. They build wells for people in Appalachia in the U.S., in Uganda and Dominican Republic, and all these types of places. So yeah,
I thought you meant they built wells for people in Appalachia. I was like, wow, are the mountains that?
Oh yeah.
To
be honest, there are some areas of the U.S. have like the poorest people in the world, which is insane. Like my buddy Greg has gone to like really poor towns there, and there's people without running water. So they'll more give, because they don't live in like a village setting like other countries, where it's like a community. They'll be maybe more isolated in like a trailer somewhere, but he'll set individual families up with water or something. Especially when they have like little babies and they're making formula with like tainted water. It's like really, really bad. But yeah, he said like we actually have some of the poorest people in the world, some of the worst off, in such a wealthy country. So that's pretty crazy. That's like mind-bending.
I think that's true in a lot of countries, sadly.
True. Yeah, for sure.
And in terms of your focus on the 24-hour, do you remember what you kind of changed and how that race went? What you did to perform well at that?
That was probably one of the hardest races I ever ran, just because I was puking for the first like 12 hours, and they basically at one point were like, "Your miles count. You have to keep running," because we had 6 women on our team, and they score the top 3. And we had Tracy Falbo and Katie Nagy running phenomenally, but then 4 of us were either out or running terribly. And so I think Connie was like the last one dragging her butt around, or maybe Allie Venti. And once they were like, "Okay, Maggie's got this. Okay, they can drop out." And I was like, "Oh my God, like I have to run my heart out for the next 12 hours." And the medical people were awesome. They were my electrolytes were so off. This is before I knew like Tailwind was a thing, and I think Tailwind was fairly new, but I was drinking Gatorade because like I went shopping in Italy for food there. I was like, I didn't really have a great nutrition plan, and I was drinking Gatorade and I don't know what else. It was terrible. And so they basically denied me water for like a while. They're giving me like salty chicken broth, really concentrated, because they said my electrolytes were off and I couldn't drink any more water. And I remember being so thirsty and feeling so depleted that I was like, I feel like I should be in the hospital, but yet I'm still running around and I'm still standing up. This is it. How am I doing this? And eventually, like, last 6 hours, I started to feel better and was running stronger, and I was able to like, I big time negative split that race, which is not normally how you would run a 24-hour race. But yeah, I ended up being able to get a good amount of miles, and I PR'd for myself. And we were able to win the competition as a team. And then Tracy and Katie were 1 and 2 on the podium, and then Maria was 3rd. So that was a really cool experience. On top of that is like the running community is awesome, and I couldn't really afford to like make the trip there because maybe it's changed a little bit, but that's mainly because Howard's fundraised for the team. But they don't pay for you to go. They give you a little bit of a stipend when you get back, or like a reimbursement, they call it. And it's like a small percentage of like the cost. Like I think it was like $500 or something. I'm not even sure. And so people donated money so I could make the trip over there. So it's like you're also running. You don't want to like just give up. So it's like you pour your heart into it for 24 hours. It was a great result. So that was also a big motivator, because I was like, people gave up, $25 so you could come here. You know what I mean? Like things like that. So that was really cool.
Do you think you'd have finished that race if you weren't running for others?
I hope that I say I would, but I mean, all those things put together where you just got every ounce out of yourself because of it. Yeah, without the medical team and the coaches, I think I would have been a mess on the side of the loop. So yeah, that's why it's such a great environment to do your best like that.
And do you think, because I mean, to have 12 hours of being in absolute hell to then have to have another 12, do you think that has set you up, that experience, for being able to just go through horrifically hard times in things like your 240 milers and your backyards?
Yeah, I think it all helps. And when I do any of those things and then I do just a 100-miler, I'm like, oh, this could be done in under a day, maybe. I think it definitely helps because you know that you've pushed through it before and that you could do it again. So I think it definitely helps, but everything's hard in its own way. Like obviously, in a 240 miler, you wouldn't run as hard as you do in a 100 miler in the beginning, but so, you just kind of have the mindset of, okay, I'm going to be out here for at least 3 days. So it's just like a different approach. Whereas like sometimes in a 24-hour, you're waiting for the time to go by. You're like, why? How is only 2 hours going by? and then trails it flies by and you're like, whoa, how's it already nighttime? So they're all kind of different in their own challenges.
And were you not tempted to give it another crack, having won the world champs and they clearly done well, even with a horrific 12-hour start? Were you not tempted to continue?
Yeah, I keep thinking about it, but there's so many races every year that you want to do. And the stuff I want to do, I like to go in the summer here. The mountains are beautiful. I live in the San Juans and where Hard Rock is basically. And I got into Hard Rock this year and I was like, yeah, if I try for a 24-hour qualifier, it's so different from the other things I want to do this year. So it's hard to decide because it's like such a focused thing where you're running flat and you want to run pavement, track, or whatever the surface is you're going to do the 24-hour on. So I haven't really committed to going back. I would like to, but yeah. Also, I don't know. I mean, it's been canceled a couple times, with the whole pandemic, and it's in Taiwan next year, which alone is like got its own challenges. So I'm like, I feel like it has a high chance of being canceled. So I feel like my motivation for doing another 24-hour needs to not be just the team. It needs to just be like, oh, I want to break 150, or I want to run a race with my friends or something. So yeah, I don't know. I just haven't figured out, and I don't do well on the track. That's too short a loop. My hips don't like it. So I think I have to fit like a 1 mile loop in somewhere, which I heard you don't get as good, you waste some distance on a longer loop, but I think I'd rather do that.
Now, one of the things that you did next year that I wanted to hear your view on it was the death race, because we interviewed, Jody interviewed the writer of the book all about the death race, and it sounds pretty unique and pretty horrific, but I mean, what was your take on it?
Oh, are you talking about, so there is a death race, but I ran, and it's like misleading, but I ran Georgia death race, so it's like, it's just the name the race director made up for it, and it's a 100K qualifier, but I've read about that too. Don't you have to like swim out to a boat with a chicken to get your like course map or something to register, and then you get all these
Yeah.
challenges and like weird things you have to do. Yeah.
And I think
I
because
mean,
Stephanie Bishop was on it, did one of them like that, and she had to eat. I think you guys call it a quart or something of milk. She just had to eat the whole. Just had to sit there and drink the whole thing as one of her
ew.
challenges.
Yeah, it sounds like
Although,
we had a show called Fear Factor on. It was like in the
yeah, I know
90s.
Fear Factor.
You remember that? That's what that's what that race sounds like, kind of. But
Yeah,
yeah,
a day of Fear
wow.
Factor.
Yeah, I don't think I could do that. As soon as it was like eat something gross, I don't think I could do it.
Thing is, if you're tired enough, you might be hallucinating for one, but also you might just be like, oh, protein, anything, just get it in me.
Was there money as an award?
It didn't seem like that kind of. I think it was a respect kind of. You know, when they cheaply go, you get the honor of respect.
Oh,
You're like,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, there's no cash then. Right, okay, fine.
Now I
Yeah.
know. Now I know how it looks to people. Okay, so we were running. Forget what year it was, but it was Big's backyard, and
Mm.
we were on the road. It was night. I think it was the second night, and cars drive. There was maybe I think this was 2019, and cars drove by. The four of us running on the road, and we we're all kind of like spread out but single file. And they stopped at the guy in the front. Trying to remember who it was. Maybe that this guy Jacob. And they said, "Is there money for winning?" And he said, "No." And then we kind of get up to ask him what did they say, and he relayed that to us, and then we're all kind of silent and realizing what we're doing, and there's no money. So that's
Did
how
that
I
all?
feel. Right. I'm that
Did that
guy in the
almost
front.
pull you off the course? Did that blindside everyone?
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed just absurd. I mean, it didn't make me lose my motivation, but I was like, I can see how that guy would ask that.
Mm. Now, in 2016, I think the first time your name popped up on my radar was when you won 100 miler outright in was it the Bezos Bend 100?
Oh, Brazos, yeah, Texas.
Yeah, oh, that's right, Brazos. Okay, yeah. I mean, how was that, and how was what was the response to that like as well, and was it a big deal during the race for the first mile?
I wasn't. I don't know. I honestly didn't realize I was winning overall until like maybe. Well, no, somebody might have said something to me on like the fourth lap or something, and I didn't know what she meant. She's like, "You're winning overall," and I was like thinking like, "Oh, okay, good. There's no females in front of me." And then like I don't know. I was just aiming for a certain time, and it was my second year there. I'd been there the year before, and
Hmm.
I was actually on a trail racing team, but the organization, Rob Goyens, the race director, he also created a team, Trail Racing Over Texas is the name of his company. And they put on all kinds of races. So it was a Trail Racing Over Texas race, and a bunch of teammates were there. And it's like Texas has a really great trail running community as well. And so it's just super fun. And yeah, I didn't really like think about, that didn't register. I didn't really know. I also didn't care because I was like, well, I'm trying for a certain time, and I hope to get it if someone passes, if a male passes me, fine. But I wasn't really thinking about that. And yeah, I mean, just when I was done, they were just like, everyone was super supportive and stoked anyway, even though I didn't hit my goal time. But it was super fun. We called my friend Tracy Falbo as soon as I finished to see if I had at least beat her time, which was 14:45, and I had run 14:47. And my buddy Rob took a picture of me calling her, and you can definitely see it says Tracy Falbo on the cell phone. It's like the perfect picture.
Have you gone back and beaten that time?
I haven't. It would be fun to go back just to try. I don't know if I could beat it again. Yeah, I mean, I think if I put in the work, I could make a good run for it. It would be fun to go back. Because that's another thing though. That's like if I go back to Brazos, that would be the good year to do the 24-hour, because then you're focusing on fast and flat. So those races really complement each other. I don't know that I'm that fast anymore because I've done a lot of hiking races. So that's the dilemma, is like living in Colorado and doing the types of races that I've aimed. It definitely makes you slower, which is why I was telling you I was doing those 400s this morning. Get some speed back.
I mean, that's one extreme to another, isn't it? Heading out for 400s. So
Yeah.
And because it's felt from the UK, because whenever there's a female who's done really well in a race, so you can look at your backyard performance, some of Courtney's races. You can look at things like Jasmine in Paris in the Spine, Beth in Western States, and the Bob Graham round. They often refer to that race as well, as in the whole, at longer distances the females are catching. Like, did it feel like, and was the reaction as if it was a semi-seminal moment?
You know what's funny? I think that weekend, the Brazos Bend weekend, there was because Caroline Baller, she's a different last name now, but she lives in the UK now. She was living in California, and I don't think she does ultras anymore, but she's super talented, really fast. She had won the 50 miler overall and broke, I mean, it's only an American record because you guys don't go by miles, or 50 miles is not a distance that you guys are as common in Europe or anything.
No, well, UK does miles actually. We're kind of a bit of a whore to both, so we'll do Ks and miles.
We're like anti-European in our need for things like miles, and we'll keep the imperial elements to slightly annoy people, but we'll also use metric because it's actually easier. So
yeah, that's funny. Well, it's everyone argues over records here. It's a made up record, kind of, because it's at least the governing body of records here does not differentiate between surfaces. But at the time, it was the 50-mile trail record, which is just a thing. So she absolutely smashed that. And then I feel like Casey Lichtig won something overall. And there might have been maybe Camille won something overall around then, and maybe Desert Solstice or something, because that was around December as well. I don't know. It was a weekend where 4 women won outright in a race. So it was kind of cool. Just that happened. And then, obviously Courtney's outright won a bunch of things. And I just think maybe more women are getting in the sport. I don't know actual numbers to prove that, but I think the more women, the same way, men are always going to be faster, but maybe the longer distance is not about being faster. So maybe that's where you get that kind of, once in a while, a female will win overall.
And are you seeing because there's always been the term chicked, and a lot of men are pig-headed about being overtaken by a female more than a male. And are you seeing that the reaction to you overtaking a man has stayed consistently similar throughout your time of racing, or do you think people are becoming more relaxed and actually less of a dick about conceding a race to a female?
I don't know of any, honestly, elite men that would be upset. Well, maybe they are and they don't say it, but by being beat by any female, I don't think the guys that have been beaten by Courtney feel bad about it or are upset. Maybe they are secretly, but my experiences in just small local trail races where some random guy doesn't want you to pass them on the trail, and they'll speed up right before you get to them to try to pass, and then they'll go slow again and try to go around them, and then they'll try to speed up, and you're just this whole thing. But just in general in ultras, I don't think they mind, or maybe they do. I don't know.
Well, I guess they've got more awareness and respect for how good the females are now. And then, so bringing to another kind of outright win, you then had Biggs in 2019. you'd done well previously. You know, you'd come seventh the year before. What was it, do you think, that really helped you in that race, and why do you think you did so well during it?
I mean, it's definitely a learning curve. That was my first time, and I mean, it's hard to have everything aligned perfectly because I've gone back and haven't had as good a race, but mentally I was like on it, and there's like a bunch of pieces. You have to be perfectly well trained and not, injured in the slightest, and your attitude has to be like, I'm done when it's over, and like, and you just have to do your fueling and stretching properly through, and the sleeping part throughout. But also, if any of those go wrong, you need to like just keep it together. And I mean, it just all aligned that year, and from what I'd learned the year before, and I just really liked that format, and I wanted to figure it out, so it was fun. But then, yeah, I've gone back multiple times since, and it's really hard to get that aligned. And like, that's why it's funny, like, yeah, Harvey's been the assist twice and finally won. So, I mean, of all the people, Harvey really has that race. Like, you'll get a consistent performance from him. But there hasn't really been repeat winners before. So, it's just everything has to line up. Like, Yum's really tough. But also, a lot of the European and international people can't get there. So, they haven't been back. But, it's just really, really hard to get all your stars to align and to get your mind and everything just on board. It's just like, it's such a long race just to keep it all together.
And do you think because of that, it is a race that new people will ever stand a chance of coming in now and actually performing incredibly well? Or do you think you need that schooling either in many ultras previously or in bigs prior to being able to actually put in a really good result now?
Well, the guy, I think it was Piotr, who came from the Eau de Laz, I think was the name of the backyard in Michigan, where Sarah Moore won her ticket. The guy she was up against, it was his first ultra ever. He'd never run even like a 50K, I don't think.
Wow.
And he did phenomenal. He was the assist, and then he came back last year, and he was fourth. There's no fourth place, but he was the fourth to the last guy to end up out. And then after that, it was just like Chris Roberts and Taramichi. And so, I mean, yeah, it's possible. You just have to have him be really stubborn and like, mechanically have your body together. I mean, I don't even need, if you need your body together, you just have to go in with the mindset that you're just going to see what you can do.
And do you go deeper, and do you have unique experiences in that race that you don't have in set distances?
Yeah, I think that's why I like it so much. Every year you're like, whoa, this has never been a thought that has crept into my mind. How do I combat this? And like, whoa, like, every year you're like, I don't remember being this tired on night one, and you have to figure it out. And it's not like a linear thing. You can just keep stacking on stuff and being better. It's like, you're like, oh, this is new. But like it's because it's such a repetitive race too, especially the road. You get to the road and you're like, I've never had IT band issues, or like this past year I had this like horrible crunching sharp pain in my kneecap, or like maybe it was like one side inside of the knee or something like really random. And I was like, what is this? And never have I had it again, and like never felt that before. And you just like, wow, it just brings out every tiny weakness. And then yeah, but it's super fun because it's like, I think the people that go there and are really successful are the ones that want to push the whole group to like a greater goal of like, we always say 100 hours or something. Like, I think that's the goal. If you go in now and you're kind of like, oh, for one, I'm going to win this, I'm going to beat everyone else. Like, you're not going to last too long, because you just got to push the group forward and hope that you're the last one there,
Mm. And the previous people we've spoken to about it, I don't think any of them have actually mentioned the stretching routine. Is that fairly unique to you, or is everyone doing that?
I think most people do some kind of maintenance. Everyone brings their massage guns and rolly things. Some people do it more than others, like, but yeah, I think everyone kind of tries to stretch and move their legs in a different way. I think it's important. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe someone like Harvey's just a freak of nature and doesn't need to stretch or something.
Mm. And then last year you took on the first like crazy long race, other than the backyard, from what I understand, the 250 miler, the Cocodona.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, talk us through that.
Yeah, well, it was an Air Viper race, and they're a big race company, Jamil Curry's race company out of Arizona. And it was like this thing he'd been plotting for a while. I remember during COVID when everything was shut down, he's like talking about this idea that he had, and they were trying to get it together. And I think it came to fruition, or at least on people's radars, or like they teased it during COVID, which is crazy. But yeah, it was like, I haven't done a big desert race, and I was like, Barkley, I had all this training for Barkley, it felt great, and it didn't turn out how I wanted. So I was like, maybe I'll just do Cocodona and use that as my training, put the training to use. And that was hot, that's for sure. I don't think I've ever been that hot. So Pam Reed, who's like an ultra running legend, she's won Badwater and several other races, and like she's close to 60 or just turned 60. She's done Badwater however many times, I don't know. She said she was hotter than Badwater during that race. Like, it was pretty crazy. I felt like I was cooking from the inside. But it was beautiful. It was so cool. You go from like super like short shrubby bushes in the desert to like big ponderosa pines and flagstaff and aspens and stuff like that. So it was a really, really cool experience just to be figuring out the course for the first time. And like, it's just funny because they didn't expect that to take that long for everyone. Like they basically had to add on the time cutoffs because they realized like not even the lead male was through when they thought, anyone would come through. And it's just fun.
And what do you do when you get that hot? What solutions did you find?
Just trying to ice off once you saw your crew, but I mean, you'd be hours between spots for them. And I was lucky to be through one of the hottest parts in the middle of the night. I think I was near Drew Freeze at that time, and he's an Arizona runner, and he's like, "You're really lucky that we're here now," because he's like, it feels hotter than Death Valley here in a day, which is just like, it was a really cool area. But it looked like there was no shade, so I could understand that. But yeah, there's not much you can do, but you got to bring a lot of water. And I wore a cotton shirt on the first day, and tried to stay wet, like people do at Western states. So that kind of helped, I think, the first day.
And what was your sleep strategy for that? Because have you done anything other? Biggs is unique in its format. But have you done anything where you've had to plan such an extended run before and slot your sleep in?
Yeah, I know, it was new to me because Biggs is regimented, so it's like you might as well try and sleep for 7 minutes because what else are you going to do? It's just wise. And this, you just want to go as long as possible. Well, I don't know that I have the right sleep strategy. I don't think I did, but I tried to go as long as possible without sleeping. I was super tired on the first night even, and I'm usually not tired on the first night, but I just think that it was so taxing and hot. Your body just so fatigued that it was really hard to stay awake the first night, which is frustrating. and I made it through the whole second day, but it was super rough, and I was really slow, and I just was having a really tough time moving. And then there was a horrible descent into this one town, Jerome. That's a really cool town built into like this big ridge, but the descent had all these baby rocks, like baby head rocks that are like really hard to run on or get a rhythm. So it was really frustrating. And so I finally lay down for my first sleep break in my cruise van. Amy and David, they have like their own van they live in. I slept in that bed in there, and it was right at sunset. And then I woke up and 30 minutes later, and I was like, felt great. But I was running with a guy who was with me that said the first night he got 90 minutes. We're still at the same spot. And he's like, yeah, I feel great. And I'm like, oh. So maybe it's better to try to sleep an hour a night or like 90 minutes or something. I'm not sure, because like the third night I took so many trail naps that like, and one pacer, you just lay down for 20 minutes and stop trying to take micro naps because they're not working. So yeah, I don't know the sleep strategy, but I think you just maybe have to be flexible and sleep when you can, kind of thing, if you're feeling really rough. Because I think I could have done it faster if I had not been so wrecked on the first and third night.
And are you now, do these races now intrigue you more than the other distances because there's something new and you haven't mastered this?
I don't think I've mastered anything. There's so many things I want to go back, like you said, like to Brazos and see if I could run that faster, because that wasn't a perfect race, and I had issues at the end. That last lap, I lost like a lot of time, so it was almost close. And same with the 24-hour. But yeah, I mean, everything is different. So there'll be like 500-mile races and stuff. But there's also a lot of like little projects I want to do that aren't races, like that would be fun, like longer trails and just doing stuff like that. There's so many things. I don't know. I think I need to get the faster stuff out of the way before I get older, because I mean, we're all getting older, and eventually, like, obviously there's people like, well, Pam Reed's still crushing it, but she's slower now. But, Darcy's in her mid-40s, Darcy Pecue, who's like one of the queens of hard rock and still crushing it. And she's like, age is just a number, and it is. But it's natural that by the time you're in your 50s, you're probably slower than when you're in your 40s. So I want to get the fast stuff that I've wanted to do. There's also one more checklist I kind of want to do. It's like a sub 3-hour marathon, just so I can say I did it. But I don't know. So all kinds of things in so little time, huh?
Well, I'd imagine if you're doing 400 sprints and you're doing a few more sessions like that, it wouldn't take a huge number of weeks to do a few tempo runs and actually be in marathon shape, because you've got such a good running form from doing that many miles that you will quite quickly transition through. And what would you say, having done all this variety of terrains, distances, styles, which one do you think is the hardest for you, and which one do you think is the hardest in general?
Honestly, the hardest thing when it comes to these things is always the sleep deprivation part. Barkley aside, which I haven't gotten to the sleep deprivation part, the hardest part for that is weather and navigation. But overall, these races would be more about just gritting through pain and things like that and relying on your training, whereas sleep affects you differently every time. Sometimes you're like, I feel great, I can handle it. Sometimes it just hits you like, whoa, I don't remember being this, like having a hard time functioning and stuff like that. So that's definitely the challenging part of these really long things.
And we were talking to Shona Hulson, who's an Australian doctor of sleep, and she was saying that they're still discovering things about the way sleep works that surprises them, and that you can suddenly have deep sleep immediately when you're a certain level of tiredness, and people are doing these 5-minute naps as if they've been in a deep, deep sleep for that period. So I think there is a huge amount that we're going to be learning about that. More and more people do these longer races. What happened at Barclay then? You've referred to it a couple of times. I hadn't been aware you did it this year, last year. But was there a navigation area then?
There was, yeah, there was pretty much constant fog the entire 2 days we were out there. It was a little less than 2 days, but it was like, yeah, we just missed the cutoff actually for the second loop. So it was about 26:50 or something. We're out there, and we had about 26:40 to finish or something. I don't know. We were, that's another thing where maybe sleep comes into it. None of us were tired, but it does impair your judgment. And it was the second night. Barclay last year started he blew the conch shell at 3:03 or 3:04, and we didn't hear it for like a while. Or maybe it was 2 something. I don't know. It started like 3 or 4. So it was in the middle of the night, and it was still kind of raining. It had poured, and it was foggy, and it's just really difficult and slow going if you can't see more than 10 feet in front of you. So it felt good, but we just didn't quite to make the time cutoff. But I'll be interested to listen to
how many do you think you've got in you?
Well, I hope the answer is 5, but I haven't gotten 2 under time, and I haven't gotten a fun run, which is 3. So can't really say. When I started this thing, I'd be like, oh, 5, I can do 5. But like, once you do it, you're like, can I? And this race keeps getting harder every year. And, the conditions you're at the mercy of the conditions, because for someone like me that needs everything to go right, because I'm not the fastest runner, I kind of like, you're crossing your fingers and training all this time. And then if the weather's absolute crap, then you're going to really have a tough time. So I don't know.
I think that's what quite a few British runners who've gone over who are really high standard. I think for people who haven't lived in that area, the weather is almost impossible for us to fathom that you can be so hot and be in snow within 12 hours, because we have neither of those extremes.
You go to Scotland.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's, I think, a lot of the runners that come over, most everyone too, because most of the country is coming from winter here. So if there's a hot day, because it's so early in the season, everyone's just wilting. Besides John Kelly, who's a temporary Brit right now.
Not for long. Only maybe 3 more months, I think.
Not for long. But yeah, it's tough. But yeah, the Frozen Head has very unique weather. Very unique.
Out of interest, is the picture, the Moxie picture, is that to do with 10 junk miles, perchance?
Which Moxie picture? Oh!
There's from your Instagram with...
No, you know what that is? I didn't know. Does that, it's Scott. Is he like Moxie?
Yeah, I have no idea what it is, but they refer to it. We did an episode with them, and they talk a lot about Moxie and how it's the most disgusting drink, but they have to drink it when something happens or someone says something on the poddy. So they've suggested we do a joint one where they send a bottle over and we send them something terrible from here.
That's hilarious. So yeah, 1 year, maybe the year Barclay was canceled, 2020. The thing we needed to bring Laz, if you're a Barclay virgin, you bring a license plate from your home state or country. We had to bring, as returning Barkers, a case of Moxie for him, because Laz likes Moxie. And so we did this virtual quarantine backyard thing that Dave Proctor and his people put on. And I timed out with an SI joint injury that put me out for 2 months, but I decided to open a bottle of Moxie and give it a try, and cheers to Laz. And it was horrid. Like,
I'm intrigued. I want this now.
yeah, it tastes like if they made Robitussin and Tylenol, liquid Tylenol, into like a soda. It's just really gross.
And that's local to Tennessee, is it?
That's actually made in Maine, I think. And it's actually hard to find now because I heard the plant in Maine had issues over COVID. And so we ended up, I shouldn't have drank those bottles because then we had to bring Moxie again the next year. And it was much harder to find. It was very expensive. You could get on
So it could
Amazon,
be.
but it was really
Do you
pricey.
Do you think someone's hoarded it?
Now.
Knowledge.
It's like the NFT. It's like
Maybe someone has maybe someone bought it all. Or they know when these things are gonna. Maybe they just bought random things during COVID and were like, maybe the price will be way up, and they have like a little warehouse.
It's probably Laz, just geniusly. He's got it all, and he's now like, you've got to bring me this thing that I'm going to just pump the charge.
It's a Moxie lake he's got until he waiting for demand.
And he keeps asking for it every year, and we have to buy it back from him to just give it to him. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's why his races are so cheap, because he charges £300 per Moxie bottle. But
it's making it on the back end. Who knew?
So look on Amazon who the seller is, and it's like Lazarus Lake LLC.
And what's left out for you there? You've said the sub 3. You've got a few races. It sounds like you've not quite performed at the level you want. But are there any things that you've yet to even attempt that you think are really suited to you, or you think are just really exciting to get around to?
Well, I'm really excited I got into hard rock because that's maybe a once in a lifetime opportunity. So I'm going to focus on that for the summer. Maybe tweak my speed and see if maybe in April so I found this downhill marathon. It's 5,000 feet of loss, so meter wise.
Where's that?
It's in Vegas. So they run from Mount Charleston down this road for 20 miles. So I was like, I'll pick that because I'm not going to wear the Nike shoes. They're way too expensive. I was like, it's a trade-off. I'll run a downhill marathon, destroy my quads, and it'll be a great little, go into the training for hard rock with some speed maybe. And then I'll do the vert and all that types of stuff, to get ready for the San Juans in July and get around that whole loop. Hopefully without a major disaster.
And have you got any tips for any listeners? For you've had such a consistent race history. Have you got any tips for how you can do that and avoid injury and stay in shape and stay passionate?
Yeah, I mean, staying passionate and motivated was up and down for me. As I kind of set my years up to just go from one race to another, and there wasn't any downtime. And I eventually realized the downtime's good. It's valuable. It helps you reset. So I've been doing that, and just, I don't ever not run at all, unless I had one injury in my whole 15 years of doing this or whatever, which is pretty good. And so, I've kind of tried to put in the extra stuff that's not as fun as running, which is strength and yoga and stretching type stuff. So, especially as you get older. And then just having weeks where, when you're not training for anything specific, where you're still just running, but not any pace or any specific mileage goal or whatever you feel like that day is I think that's important.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and thanks for spending time with us. Good luck with getting sub 3. I do think you'll do it relatively easily, easier than you think, actually. Particularly, and if you don't do well in the Vegas run, there's another downhill race in Europe put on by a beer company that is going to be incredibly fast. So,
are you chasing a wheel of cheese during this race?
Oh wow! You should do that. You should do that.
No, that looks terrible.
Your split would certainly be fast enough, but I think trying to continue that for 26 miles would be one hell of a challenge. for the local
Unless you
local
really like
hospitals, if
cheese.
anything.
You really like cheese.
But yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
if you ever make it to the UK and want to do, if you're going to do that, let me know, and I'll come and happily film from the bottom and just see what happens.
okay. Okay. Or maybe I'll just join you and we'll race some elites for the first quarter mile and then we'll just drop out.
And if people want to follow you and follow your journey, what's the best way for them to do that?
My Instagram account at Magatron Runs. A lot of pictures of my dog / mini donkey.
And do let us know if you go and do the donkey racing, because we heard all about it about 2 months ago and it sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that would be a good Halloween costume. I can dress as Chris McDougal and Titus can be the donkey.
Chris McDougal
Shave
would be
your
an
hair.
amazing
Perfect.
Halloween costume, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Although you couldn't really do that with your runner friends, because they'd all want to kill you for all their injuries, which they've experienced in the barefoot. So you'd have to be careful.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. And the next time, when you do hard work, and if you get that sub 3, let us know, and we'll get you back on to talk about it.
Awesome. That'd be great. Thanks.
What a lovely person.
Oh, lovely, lovely. We need to talk about what the most important aspect of that entire interview was. And that's that Maggie watches the Grand Tour. Like, I know, I know Amazon have got that, but I didn't realise that was like big in the States in any way.
Yeah. I mean, not being a huge fan of Clarkson, I didn't really want to.
I can't imagine how that would translate. Downton, I can understand, but fucking Clarkson. Like three, what's it called? Especially like James May, so like a relatively posh bloke, Jeremy Clarkson, who must come across as incredibly posh to Americans, and then
they must be such alien people.
I can't imagine, because I suppose it's cars and stuff, but it has such a quintessential British humour to it that I don't know.
Yeah, we should have asked her about what she thinks of each of the individuals and like how she sees them if they were, who their American equivalent would be. Are they thinking Bill Burr, or are they thinking, someone?
But like, I wonder about this kind of thing. If people they see someone like Clarkson and they go, oh, it's like a modern day John Cleese, like, because I imagine, like, especially, in other countries, that you don't see all the other bits of John Cleese that you would normally do in his home country and stuff. You only see, like, the highlights of John Cleese.
The best of the best, yeah.
The best of the best. You don't see him, like, when he's, like, having to do gas efforts.
You don't see shouting, yeah.
You get gas efforts, he's gone to his 3rd divorce, and that, it's sort of a downward trajectory where he's complaining about being cancelled and stuff on an interview, on his 15th interview of the day or something like that. So you don't see all that. And it's like, I wonder if it's the same with Clarkson. Like, Clarkson comes across as like, because he is funny, he is clever, but you don't have the newspaper columns to go with it, so you have nothing to judge it against.
His weekly column of punching down on someone. Yeah, really interesting, and such a nice person. She's such a nice person, and it's quite.
I love her honesty. About stuff. That's really things like the sleep strategy. I love it. I've not got that sorted yet. It doesn't, because everyone we talk to, like everyone, like you feel like they have their sleep strategy sorted, like they kind of know. And like sleep is one of the ones that you can't control in even at the running show. We've just been at the running show, listener, and we've been talking about sleep strategies with different people and stuff like that. And there was not a single person there who said, "Oh, no, I haven't got that sorted," or everyone felt like they had it under control, didn't they? So it's quite refreshing to hear it on the other side.
It reminds me when you chat to someone like Maggie, just how many ultras there are in America and how varied they are. Just how contrasting, and just how many long ultras exist. We really don't have that many in the UK, and I'd say the same for Europe as well. We're so far behind in some ways.
I'm not so sure that's true in Europe. I really don't. I think in France and Spain and places like that, I think that there's been sort of like ultra trail races and stuff for a lot longer than kind of we have, because they have a much. I suppose because that's a lot of that's tied to things like the Alps and the Pyrenees and like long distance trekking and stuff like that, which we just don't have the same tradition of it. And I think in America they do have more of a tradition of it. And in America, like, the state's like a fucking country, isn't it? That's the thing. And so you're gonna have much more. Like, you can literally stay with most states. You stay within a state, and you do more ultras on different terrains and things like that than you would, in the whole of the UK. And it would probably it'd be a damn sight cheaper as well. And I think that's the thing, isn't it?
And I was conscious in that interview. Now because it used to be when we had a guest on, we'd talk about a race, and we and the listener generally wouldn't know much about that race, and we'd then go deep on like a particular race. Whereas now we're at the point where we know Biggs well, we know quite a few of the races well, and it's a different interview now, isn't it? With someone, if we'd have had Maggie on 3 years ago, we might have talked about Biggs' backyard for.
No, we're so big time, we just get Courtney DeWalter to just explain what a race is to us without actually going into any detail about all her incredible achievements.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
So is the point that saying, were we like incredibly ignorant about the American ultra running scene at that point? Yes, I would say, listener, yes, we were.
Yes, we were. But my question to the listener now is, when we get people like Maggie on, because the longer we're doing this podcast, the more we're going to speak to people again, but also we're going to have covered a lot of the big races. And so, for example, a good example of this, when we were talking about Biggs, that we spoke to Harvey a month ago about it, in a fair bit of detail. We've spoken to Courtney, huge amount of detail about it, and a few others. And like, do you as a listener want us to get tips on the big races, no matter who it's from? Do you want to hear about the training for that, the nutrition and the breakdown? Or do you like us kind of meandering through the stories of a person? Like, because I'm not sure actually where the juice is anymore. Like, what's the meat that people like to chew? The meat that they like to eat, other than the vegans like yourself, Jody.
That they like to chew. I see. That's the thing, isn't it? When you are less aware of races, and especially in the US, because that's a racing scene that we know less about. You can meander, and you won't get obsessed with it. Like, I think if someone says, "Oh, I've done this race, and I've done the Western States," it's really easy to focus on the Western States because it's the big race. Whereas we were kind of like meandering around, like, oh, I've not really heard of Moab, I've not really heard of these other things, I've not heard of that. And so it's not as if you don't fixate on something. You're more fixated on, like, what was your experience of those, and you more want to go after the, what went wrong in this race and what did this. And I think that's the difficulty, isn't it? Because and I think this is true for all podcasts and media and everything as well, is that from an SEO perspective, you want to focus on the things that people are going to search, don't you? You just go, oh yeah, no, these were some tips to help you deal with the the Bigfoot ultra or whatever like that, which no one fucking searches for. Like 8 people do a search for or whatever. And so I suppose that's the difficulty, isn't it? Is you do focus on those things, but then how many people in our audience are going to realistically run like Western States or something like that? Do they? I mean, like, do you really want tips from that, or would you expect that from a more credible podcast? I mean, we could give you. I mean, the thing is, we were giving tips about barefoot running, and we had no knowledge of barefoot running. We have slightly more knowledge of the Western States than we have had of barefoot running. So we could just do a whole episode where we're giving tips about the Western States, not knowing anything about it.
I know where it is.
And the thing is, that will end up being one of the more popular episodes simply through the keywords we've chosen. I mean, that's the crazy thing about it, isn't it? That's the crazy thing about all of this.
Yeah, and that's where I guess we want your guidance, D-Bad, is let us know, because I really enjoyed our conversation with Maggie, and I'm pretty happy with that interview. But should we have focused more on training? Should we have focused more on nutrition? Should we have focused more on fewer races, or where do you want us to go?
I feel you're setting up another poll here. This is we've got a poll strategy going on in the Facebook group. It's our way of actually hiking the numbers up by creating some kind of false choice between things as well, but ahead of the interview.
I'm not going to poll on this one because I know how the last poll went and the poll before. It's not. I mean, we're as bad with polls as the Germans were in the 40s. Let's just say that. Let's just say that.
David, I've seen you. I've seen you
to
on a
finish
poll.
off on a Top Gear.
I've seen you on a poll with a pair of transparent high heels on, and it's not a good sight.
Well, people still paid. But anyway, thanks for listening, guys. And if you've got any suggestions of guests or topics you'd like us to into in the future, let us know. We'll go out and get them. And please do rate and review us because it really helps getting people like Maggie, who've done a lot of podcasts in the past, just take note by thinking, actually, maybe these guys are worth chatting to. So please leave us a review on iTunes. And if you've got Spotify, please go on your phone and leave a review. You can't write a review in that. You can just put a 5-star or a 4-star, but ideally a 5-star. Please do that. It really helps the podcast and helps us get good guests.
And if you're French, try doing that as well. Go on. Just we'll tell you.
Yes.
I know you don't like taking direction from a British person or an English person, but go on. Just if you just like it, just do it. If you want
We're yet to get a single French review. We want you Frenchies.
It's incredible. We even talk about the French in the bloody headlines of episodes in order to attract their attention. We're getting paid back for Waterloo here. I sounded like Clarkson. We've talked about him too much.
Yeah.
If you want to join the conversation, head to Facebook, type in Bad Morning Podcast, answer 3 questions, and join the group. We have some merch after the running show, so if you still want, we have a lot of extra small and extra large, and I'd have thought we'd have sold out of extra large stuff a long time ago, knowing the Bad Boy Running community. But yeah, we have like plenty of stock on there. So if you want to head on there, get some merch, and ready for race season, suit up in BBR colours.
And I mean, the good thing about having extra large merch is, even if people aren't going to buy it now, there's a few of us who are probably going to have to buy it in the future. Yeah, just hold on to it and it'll sell. But thanks for listening, guys. I forgot to ask questions this week, but there weren't many because I put the post up too late. But follow us on Instagram. You can ask questions to the guests. And thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.